We live in a world based on money. But why do we need it and where does it come from? In part 1 of this therapy session, we talked about value creation and trade. If you haven't seen it, watch it first. The story could have ended right there with all of us creating our pots and spears and trading them for each other. Such trade, which doesn't involve any money, is called barter. The problem with barter economies, such as the one of ancient Greece, is that they rely on the coincidence of wants. Someone with a surplus of spears and a lack of pots has to find his exact counterpart to enter a trade. Having to wait for such coincidences results in an illiquid market, meaning not a lot of trades are happening. The problem of the coincidence of wants can be solved with a universal divisible storage of value, also known as
opportunity.
No, money. I smell money.
Okay.
In a situation when the coincidence of wants doesn't work because no two parties can agree on a trade, give everyone a coin and they can resolve their conundrum. Value can be stored, trade becomes flexible, and everybody gets what he wants. Wherever trade was common, there was some widely accepted form of money. In 17th century Japan, for example, such a unit was koku, an amount of rice. The empire even tried to measure its total wealth in kokus and arrived at around 28 million. Which, using the current spot market price of rice, would be around $1.5 billion in today's money. Does this conversion make sense? I don't know, but it's less than one Evan Spiegel. So how much money does an economy need to run? That depends on the amount of value creation and trade that are happening. If you live in a Bronze Age village with an economy based on bread, pottery and some cattle, thousands of units will do the trick. Scale it up to a larger city and you'll need millions. For a wealthy nation, billions or even trillions. Today, the worldwide amount of money is categorized into the 4 M's. M0 is the cash in circulation. Worldwide, that's currently around $6 trillion. If you're saving all your money in a piggy bank, then that's the glass ceiling you're eventually going to hit. Now, if you save your money in a bank account, you can go places. Because then it becomes part of M1, which is the amount of money that exists in cash plus the one which exists in demand deposits. The amount of M1 is currently around $30 trillion worldwide. Now you take those 30 trillion Washingtons and add them to saving accounts and time deposits. Now you will have the amount of money that we refer to as M2, which is currently around $70 trillion. Finally, add to that larger liquid assets like institutional money market funds and a whole lot of other crap and you'll arrive at M3. In other words, M3 is the total amount of value which we are actively representing in some currency. It's currently around $80 trillion. This is, not coincidentally, about the same as the world GDP, as, remember, money started out as a trade enabler. These numbers are just a current snapshot of where we are at. Where will they be in a few years? Well, I don't know, but probably higher than they are today, as the worldwide amount of money supply is steadily increasing. How so? There are 2 ways in which money is created. One is through the central bank, a public institution with special powers, usually granted by the parliament. Among other things, it has the power to literally print money, or create it in the form of credit, which it then gives to commercial banks or states by buying assets or government debt from them. These dollars can then be spent and or lent out, which is how they end up in circulation. However, in most nations, the central bank makes up for less than 10% of money creation. Most of it is created by commercial banks, or as most people refer to them, just banks. They use a method called fractional reserve banking, which brings us back to you. So you save your piggy bank money of $100 in an actual bank. The bank can safely assume that you won't run in tomorrow and claim back your entire money. In fact, they play a statistical game. They assume that of all their clients' deposits, they won't have to pay out more than 10% at any point in time. So they can lend out the rest, right? Even better. They say the entire deposits are their 10% and they can create and lend out 9 times that amount of money. So for the $100 that they got from your piggy bank, they can now lend out another $900 in money that didn't exist before. Like a f***ing magician, they can just make it appear. Now since they can't literally print money, they create it in the form of credit. Meaning they say, it's there, just believe us, but just don't try ever to spend it all at once. Because if everyone tried to do that, we have what is called the bank run. And everyone would realize that, in fact, only 10% of it was ever really there. And because banks don't like to be GG'd by their clients, they will in such situations impose a daily drawdown limit, praying to their god, Munitas, that the system stabilizes and the bank run stops before the bank runs out of money. The extent to which the central bank can control this creation of money is only by changing those 10%, the so-called reserve ratio. If they increase it, it means that banks need to keep a higher relative reserve, which means that they can lend out less, thus create less new money. That level of control aside, money creation is largely privatized and follows the rules of supply and demand. If money supply goes up, the price of a currency should drop, and we should expect inflation. If money supply goes down, we should expect the opposite. Money supply, check. What about money demand? Did you notice how every dollar of money is connected to a dollar of debt? Whichever way money is created, the institution which gave it away wants it or something else in return at some point. While this has been the origin of many conspiracy theories, it's actually just a reflection of the fact that money has no inherent value, but is just a representation of value. If a dollar bill wouldn't ultimately be the claim on a dollar of debt, or in other words, a dollar of value created by someone somewhere else, then all it would be is just a piece of paper with a nice drawing on it. So does that mean that we can never get rid of our debt as long as there are dollars in circulation and nobody can ever really get ahead? No. Example time. Let's say you go to the bank, borrow money, meaning you take on debt to use that money to build a house. So at the end of the day, you took money that didn't exist before to create value that didn't exist before in exchange for debt that didn't exist before. Cool. The money now entered the system through construction firms and whatever, which means that the money supply has increased. With the exception of M0, because commercial banks don't print money, remember? Now you go to work every day, meaning you trade your skill and time for other people's dollars, some of which might as well be the dollars which your bank created for you to build your house in the first place. Mind blown. And eventually pay back the money, meaning you cancel out your debt, which means that you own $0 and have zero debt. What you keep at the end of all this rigmarole is the value of your house. The flow of money occurs hand in hand with the value creation process, while underlying value is being built up. And the more things we create each year, the more money we need to represent this value we created that year. While the amount of broad money supply M3/GDP is currently around $80 trillion, the total amount of built-up value or global assets is currently around $260 trillion. So next time you're broke and believe the big bang conspiracy has screwed you, just remember, money has no inherent value, it's basically just a trade enabler. The Japanese used to have rice money, lol. Most money creation is privatized. Bank runs are bad, go build a house.